you everybody for coming. I appreciate you guys, and nice to meet everybody. The ladies that own the studio, thank you so much for having us here. It's such a cool studio. So, a lot of you guys went to the talk yesterday. Okay, cool. So I'll just go like for the ones that didn't go, I'll do a little repeat talk about why or how I do my work. So I was born in a family of with potters on my mother's side from Coche de Pueblo. So watching our parents and our grandmothers, our aunts, our whole family, they would always be working on pottery every day. So every time we get up for school, our mom would already be at the dining room table creating her clay works. And I thought every family did it, but that was kind of funny, but that's just how it was, right? So everybody would go to school, come back. You know, most of the kids would go out and play, but my playtime was working with clay and sketching and just having fun. And our dad was a drum maker, so we're surrounded by art. I'm the youngest of 6 kids in our family, so I was the last one to fly the coop. So I had the longest time to hang out with our mom and our dad and just really learn as much as I can about all their teachings of how to create the traditional work. And when I say like Coche de traditional pottery, that means that we go and dig our own clay. We make all of our own paints, all from the Earth Mother. So everything was natural. This process is like really time consuming. It takes a whole year for us to gather all the materials and to process them. So there's a short video that will show you like this whole process, like a whole year's work condensed into like 5 minutes. But it was just so funny that once I started like heard about Ensica, and my whole focus was just traditional artwork. And I never even like looked at magazines or anything for contemporary ceramics and high fire ceramics. But one time I had, I think it was on this Periscope app, and it was before Instagram Live and Facebook Live came into play. So Periscope was like a live broadcasting app that there's a couple of people on Instagram that were all ceramicists, and we came up with this idea of like, we'll share like an hour of studio time from you, and then the next hour would be you, next hour would be you. So we started building this little ceramics community on Periscope, and through that I would always watch everybody's that were their little mini lectures, right, and taken in their studios. And I noticed that everybody had the same kind of bags that had like, you know, a square clay in it. And I was wondering, I was like, why is everybody like having the same kind of bags? But it was just kind of funny because I had never been into a ceramic store before. So his name was Neil Chelani, and he was up at the Greeley, Colorado, at a ceramic studio up there. And he had invited me and my friends and my family to come up to go check it out. So that was the first time I seen people soda fire. And he was like asking me like, okay, like how are you're going to go dig all your own clay and stuff, and takes this long because some of my like when I would have my hour to share, one time I took him to when I was getting clay. So everybody was like, what, you dig your own clay? And that's all that I knew. So it was just kind of funny to really try to learn all the terminology back and forth, because I had no idea. I didn't go to school for anything. And to listen to all these non-indigenous ceramicists like have all the same lingo, all the terminology, like they're asking me what kind of cone I fire to, and I had no idea. It was just funny because like, I don't know, ice cream cone or snow cone. So and none of it made sense to me. So they slowly started to teach me all the terminology. And it was like, as you guys know, like how ceramicists are all open and giving and so with everyone. So they took me under their wing, and Neil and Matt had came down to Santa Fe one time because I wanted to hire them as models as some of my characters, because both of them, like after we had met online, like everybody's in Zoom right now, right? But when we met online, met them in person, and I had no idea they're like 6'5" tall. I mean, they're really tall guys. So I was like, oh man, you guys would be perfect to model the aeronauts, some of my characters. and they agreed. So they came down to Santa Fe, and he said, "I'm taking you to the ceramic store. You go, I'm gonna make sure to show you what's over there." So we went in there, and it was like a kid in a candy store looking at all the different tools and all the ribs and all the carving tools, because normally like our basic carving tools would be like popsicle sticks or pencils, any kind of wood things that our dad would make us. And for the ribs, he would grow gourds and dry them out, and then he would cut them. So that's what our ribs were. So it's just funny to like compare all the similar tools that we all use. But it's funny just to go like look at all the different types of clay, the textures, the colors, and especially the glazes blew my mind, because our traditional colors are black, white, and red in Cochiti. But to go into the ceramic store and you could, you see turquoise blue, like yellow, green, whatever color you want, metallics. I was super excited. So needless to say, I bought all different types of clay. I had no idea what I was working with, and they're like, "Don't touch porcelain. That's really hard to do because you're a hand builder." And I had no idea, but I still bought porcelain and tried it, and of course, it didn't work out. But it was just so fun to play with and experiment all that. But so now, once I started, was able to really experience all these different types of materials and all the really cool glazes, I said, okay, like I'm really going to concentrate on developing all the characters. So all of the characters that you see, a lot of them are very futuristic and alien looking, but that comes from why I feel like I'm here on this earth to do is to educate people about the 1680 Pueblo Revolt. Have you guys heard of that before? So it's a really important time of why Pueblo people are still here. So it was the uprising after all the bloodshed and the genocide that happened to our people, the oppression that happened by the invaders. And there was many battles before 1680, but that was the big battle was 1680. And they got tired of all this happening, being forced to build churches and enslaving the people, murders and all that. And there's a lot of lives lost back and forth on both sides, and that's needless to say, it was like all the atrocities that happened, it was like that could have all been avoided, but it happened. So that is not taught in our schools. It's not in our textbooks. So it's basically been like swept under the carpet because of the genocide that happened. My manager, Tisha Goyo, her father, Herman Agoyo, was spearheaded the whole idea of bringing Pope to the National Statutory Hall. So that was really another reason why I really talk about the Pueblo Revolt, because he was a person that was very knowledgeable about it, and he would educate a lot of people. So when he passed away, before then, he gave us kind of like the baton and like said, okay, you're doing it in a different way of how to educate people. And he said, I support you guys. So we basically took the baton and we got his blessing. So that's what we've been doing like for over 20 years now. So when you look back at how fast time has gone, it's insane. But to have him and all of our people, our ancestors, the spirits around us and blessing and helping us tell this story, that's very important to us, and it gives us the strength to do it. So now I was trying to think like, how are we going to really get everybody's attention, especially the next generation, of how to teach them this whole history of Cochiti, because I'm not an academic person. So I was like, okay, I can do it through art. And using the traditional clay works, it was very important as well. That's like the second reason I feel like I'm on this earth, is to make sure that the creations of Cochiti Pueblo pottery using really old school methods and materials stays alive. But right now it's currently a dying art form, just because of how long it takes to dedicate your time to create these pieces. So luckily me, like being born in a family of potters, like I was used to all the hard work and how long it took to gather all these materials. And our mom was in different galleries, so that was my foot into these galleries and learning how to do like the business side of selling the ceramic work. So knowing all this know-how of like how our parents showed us how to deal with galleries. So I said, okay, like I'm gonna write a script about the 1680 Pueblo Revolt. And I love sci-fi as a kid. Like I really love Star Wars. And I was like 6 years old when I first seen the first Star Wars. And it stuck with me. I learned all the characters, how they drove or what they drove, what their costumes look like. But I said, okay, if I can remember how much reminisce and how much it affected me as a kid. And I said, I want to do the same thing. So I wrote a script about the Pueblo Revolt happening simultaneously in two time dimensions of 1680 and 2180. So that allowed me to bring the sci-fi aspect to the storytelling. So that's why you see all these different characters and now playing with all the different types of glaze and like the exciting colors and stuff. And my intention, I really love like the terracotta warriors, like how big those are. So I was like, man, I really want to get that big and like meeting people along the way, like Christina Cordova, we're talking about her earlier, and just like amazing to see it. And it's all possible. And do you guys know who Simon Levin is? So he's a wood fire potter out of Illinois. But he invited me to go to Anagama firing, and I had no idea what Anagama firing was, and or how long it took, and like how it all works. But I ended up driving up to Wisconsin. It was so cool just because like first of all I got close claustrophobia like because of like all the trees that you couldn't see. Like it was so crazy to be there, like how green it was. And so we met the whole team and it was so cool. Like if you guys ever had that experience of firing in Atacama, like how everybody takes shifts and like meet together, laugh and everything together. But it was such an experience and we had a really good time. The pieces I took came out really excellent, so I was very happy about that. But driving back from Wisconsin back to New Mexico, I was planning on stopping in Lincoln, Nebraska to see some friends because I had did a workshop over in Lincoln University. And he said, man, he goes, you could stop at June Kaneko. Do you know who that June Kaneko is? And I had no idea because like I never knew anything. But so we're looking it up. I was like, wow, this is insane. Like what he's done, like his whole life and how big, like, 15-foot tall dongos, right? These really huge ceramics. And it was all like falling into place of what I wanted to do is to create really large pieces. So Simon set up a meeting so that I could go check out his studio. So I drove to Omaha and I guess him and his wife Ree had looked up like what I do, so they offered me to stay in their Airbnb. I was like, what? This is insane. So went to, and he said like, my head manager, studio manager, would meet you and he will show you and give you a tour. And he said I told him to answer any question that you want and just to spread the knowledge to all the universities that you work with or any other clay people and to share that knowledge. So it was really awesome to drive to Omaha and Trevor, the studio manager, said, I'll be on the corner of this street on this street and I'll open the garage door and drive in. So he was there waving. I drove into it. And little did I know, like I drove up a big ramp and all of a sudden I seen all of the bisque pieces that were like 3 feet from the car. So I panicked a little bit just because like how big they were, but it was insane to drive and park right next to it in his studio. So once we got out, it was Trevor just said, okay, like he told me to answer any questions that you wanted. So Trevor was one of the people that helped him build the really big pieces. So he goes, I'll show you how we do it. And he showed me how to do the bases of like how a really huge bust, like all the weight that is on the base. And like when you dry it, you have to put like, I normally would use sand on the bottom. I still do it and like newspaper, right? So it acts like a ball bearing where it allows the clay to shrink and without cracks. But Trevor had told me like how they do the huge bust that he does. So he makes like an inner circle and it has a floor, then he starts the outside walls. So the reason he does that is because it gives it more strength, and if it cracks, it's going to crack on the inner circle first, and it saved the outside walls. And also it's function wise too, of how he would install a huge say a huge bust like that, an open circle would sit on the pedestal, but then there's like he had a trap door on the pedestal where these arms that came out, the steel rods would hold onto the inside circle, so it secured it, and it was like part of function of how he designed his big pieces. So, and also instead of using sand, they also use sand as well, like to help it all shrink together. But he also used grease, so that made total sense to me. So he also have used ratchet sets. So like every day they would crank it up a little bit more, so it helped all the sides come closer together and help it dry without cracks. So that was like one of his hugest knowledgeable suggestions of how I was supposed to create larger pieces. And now I've been doing it like that all the time, and it's like the success rate is really awesome. Like it doesn't crack anymore. And so he shared his knowledge. So when I ended up going to the Archie Bray, I used that technique, and it really worked. So I was able to share it with all the other residents that were at the Archie Bray. But it was just amazing person of that caliber in ceramics to really and have him share his knowledge with it. And it's my job to pass it on to everybody, so it's really, really cool. I didn't know I was going to meet him, and I didn't know he had like 4 buildings in downtown Omaha, like all his studio, his showroom, the storage part, like an exhibition place. Amazing, amazing, amazing of like how his company works. And he had just built a brand new museum there. So cool. And if you guys ever get a chance to go visit that museum, it's awesome. But Trevor had said, he wants you to come to meet him at his house. And he goes, Trevor said, I really never go to his house. He goes, it's like amazing to do this. So ended up going to his house, and we met Ree and June, and it was amazing to walk into his home, because his home is now above the new museum. And just to see all the artwork that was in there, all the clay blew my mind. And there's so much inspiration around, and very exciting to be with him. And Ree ended up cooking dinner. She's an awesome cook. And it was so fun to spend time with him and really be one-on-one with him and ask all the different questions. And he was always asking me, he goes, do people tell you to slow down? I said, yeah. And he goes, don't ever do it. He goes, just keep going. Because like, he goes, they tell me that too. But I didn't know that how much multimedia he works in as well. So we were talking about that. He goes, like, you do fashion, you design all this different things. And I said, yeah, it's just like, because I'm never bored. So like if I'm creating in clay, I'll do that, then I'll put it away, then I'll go create a garment to go sew, or either I'll go over there and go sketch. So it's always just creating. I just learn as much as I can, and it's mostly like via YouTube University. So like foam fabrication for all the different characters, like make armor, because you can't just go to like a Halloween store and buy my characters' outfits. So you have to make them, and it's really fun to learn how to work with foam and bring all these characters alive. So all these different mediums that I do work in, they all revolve around the clay, because clay is the core of all my creations. So that's like the nucleus of who I am, and all these other mediums orbit around it. But all the students that I do work with, I try to encourage them to learn whatever you guys want, because you're eventually going to use this other medium and incorporate it into what you're, say, at a gallery display, or any way that it all works together. So and I also tell them not to be afraid to fail, because failures are our best teachers. So if you're not afraid to fail, you're going to learn what you want to do a lot quicker. So you just try it at least once, and if you fail, you're like, okay, now I know how to do it. I won't do it that way no more, and I'll do it this way. So it's pretty cool, and that's always remembering how our mom did. Like, okay, like that didn't work, so let's go try it this way. But she was never negative and saying like, oh, don't do it like that. Just she like was very supportive, and that's where I learned how to just keep on trying until I figured it out. But yeah, like through the video, you'll see how we have to go harvest our clay. So it's like a tedious project that we have to go. I get all my family members together, and especially my nephews, because it's really hard to collect the clay. But we park our vehicles in the bottom of the mountain, and we have to hike like 30 minutes upward, carrying our shovels, the picks, 5-gallon buckets. And once we get to the top, to the clay vein, to the Earth Mother, then we have to introduce ourselves and state our purpose and ask permission to dig into her, and ask for guidance and connection to our ancestors that all got the clay from this vein. So once we do that and we feed the Earth Mother, then we're able to take clay and we fill up the 5-gallon buckets, and they're super heavy because the clay comes out of the earth very dense and it's still wet, looks like dark chocolate. You like when you're going back down, it takes another 30 minutes to get back down to your vehicle. So you're carrying those big the 5-gallon buckets, and you literally can move like 20 steps, and you have to put it down, rest a little bit, and keep going down like that. But she makes you work so hard to go get it, but like that's how we protect the clay as well, and only take what we need. And once we get the clay home, then we have put them in the storage in the barns, and we have to let it dry to bone dry, because if you try to put those pieces of the dense damp clay to soak it, it's so dense that it doesn't soak all the way through, so you have pure little clay balls and everything, even though you're thinking you're dissolving it, but it's there's still little clay pieces together. Next time, the pumice stone rock, which is our grog, that we have to mix the clay with, it will create like cracks or explosions. So that's why we have to dry it for a whole year. So once it's dry, then we just take a little empty coffee can, and take a steel rod, and we crush it up, all these little pieces of clay, and we pulverize it to like maybe like a 1/4 inch size pieces. And once it's all pulverized, then we have a little bin, a plastic bin next to us, and you kind of distribute the crushed clay up, and then you slowly add the water. So it's rehydrating. It's bone dry, but it's rehydrating evenly now. Crush some more, and then do another layer till the bin is full. And after about a week or so, the clay starts to pull away from the bin, and that's like that's kind of a point, an alarm of like when we're supposed to mix the. Thank you. We're supposed to mix the clay with this pumice stone. But another day we go get the pumice stone. It comes out of the earth very like big white chunks, and it's very already very soft. But once we get it back to the studio, then we lay down a piece of canvas, and I put on my combat boots because they has a lot of traction on it, and you're able to really just step on it and pulverize it that way. So it gets already mixed very fine. And then we had to put it through 2 screens to get it really fine, like baby powder. So once you have these 2 materials ready to go, then we start to mix the 2. And we don't really have any amounts of the 2 ingredients. But if I know I'm gonna make a certain size figure or a pot, then I more or less know like how much clay I'm supposed to mix. And I usually work on 1 piece at a time. So we sculpt all the pieces, and the walls are about a 1/4 inch thick, a little over a 1/4 inch thick, and they all have to be more or less the same thickness because of the pit firing that we do, and it expands and contracts. So if there's like a thicker piece in it, it'll also explode. So earlier I was telling people that like my success rate was 90%, like you still lose like 10%, but I guess I said it wrong yesterday that everybody thought it was like, yeah, 10% was my survival rate. Oh yeah, the success rate is like about 90%. So creating using the traditional materials, it takes about maybe 3 months to make like a really large piece, or maybe 2 months to do like a medium-sized pot. So we only have 1 firing, and that's done at the end of the whole process. So we also have to, like I mentioned earlier, our colors are black, white, and red from Coach D. And the clay body is red. So then we have to slip the whole thing with a white clay slip, turns it all white. And then we have to rag polish it. and it turns the surface into a glossy surface. And once you have that, then it's ready to fire. But you cannot touch it with your hands because you always have like natural oils on your hand, no matter how many times you wash your hands. But if you accidentally touch a piece that were supposed to be white and you have like oil on your hand, you won't find out until after you fire that you have a big old smudge. So it's like working with the high fire stuff, like you get to biscuit and then you get to paint it or put the glaze on. But if you make a mistake, you can just sponge it off, right? But with the coachety materials, once you touch the piece with our paint, which is wild spinach paint, is made from the wild spinach plant. It's there forever. You can't erase it or anything. To make our wild spinach paint, you'll see the video, and again, I gather my whole family, and um, we have to go when the plant starts to bloom. It has purple flowers on it, so that is like another sign or an alarm for us to go pick the plant. And we only get just the leaves, and um, I don't know why you can't get the stems and all, but I did try to cheat and then get the stems, and it didn't work. So it takes about 2 weeks to make this wild spinach paint. So I never did that again because like you lose like a whole 2 weeks of your life going that didn't work out when you're trying to cheat. But once you gather all of these, just the leaves only, and then we take it back home and put them into large pots of boiling water, and you keep continuous boil. Then you start to slowly see the leaves disintegrate, and then we take another cotton rag, scoop out the leaves, strain them out, get the juice. That's what we're after, is the juice. Keep on boiling, and it gets thicker and slowly starts to get thicker. Then it condenses, and we start to just combine all the juice into one pot. So after about like a week and a half or so, then it's like really starting to thick, almost like lava looking, like that thick, and it goes down to like about half a gallon from like 5 really huge pots of boiling water. So it's now you only have like a gallon, left, and I'm able to take it indoors now and to finish the cooking of the process of it. So you have to watch it really close at this point, because if you overcook it or burn it, it's not going to stick to the polished white clay slip. So then again, if you overboil it, then you've lost that many that many days of working and trying to make the paint. So once you get to the point and you just look at how the bubbles are boiling, and we add a little bit of sugar to help caramelize it. And once you add a little sugar, then it slowly starts to caramelize, and then we remove it from the heat, distribute it onto corn husks, and then that's how we dry it. So we have to dry that for another year. So it's like at the 6-month mark, it's still soft and you get this bendable. But like at the year mark, it's almost like a really hard, like a Jolly Rancher. And you could crack it up, rehydrate it, and that's how we use to decorate our pottery. So it goes on sometimes like really transparent brown or green. But once you fire it, it burns on and it turns all black. So our firing process, we do the above ground pit fire. So it's outdoors. And we have this little grate that stands maybe 10 inches off the ground or 8 inches. And we have a single kiln shelf on it. And we have to burn the ground again to make sure that everything is warmed up and it's all bone dry. So once we have the kiln shelf ready to go, then we fire all of our figurative pottery standing up, and our pots are inverted upside down. So you have the piece there, and you cover it. We have a bunch of different sizes of chicken wire cages that you just put over the piece, and that's for protection to hold the cow manure that we've again collected and throw it in the barn and let it get bone dry. So you put the cow pies around the chicken wire, and it looks like a beehive once you're completely done with that. Then we use cedar and aspen wood slithers to put around it and ignite it from all sides, because we want like no smoke to touch the piece or the fire, so it has to just suck up all the oxygen and burn straight up. So once you probably about like 2 hours, you're just burning, feeding with wood, and slowly you notice that the cow manure is starting to catch fire. And once that happens around the 2.5 hour mark usually, then we stop beating the wood, and it's just the cow manure that burns from the inside, the outside inward, and that creates our kiln. So at that point, you're just saying your prayer, like you don't hear a thud or cracking sound, popping sound. But I have opened it once before, and it's like completely glowing, like you see in a kiln, like the orange, and they're almost like transparent pieces. So it does get really, really hot. So once you let it cool down and the piece, if it survived, then you take it out, and all the paint has now got all ashy, so you have to go rag polish it again. And usually I use like animal fat or egg whites to cover the surface, and it seals it, and it gives it a nice rich patina to it, the whole thing. Because normally if you just handle it with your hands, like the oils would put that kind of sheen on it. But to speed up the process, then we use the animal fat or egg white. And then, like everybody laughed yesterday when I said, then you call the museum or the gallery. So it's a whole process to do it. So you'll see how that process is really quick. So we could, the first slide. This is a picture of me and our mom Seferina and our dad Guadalupe, and some of the members of my family that are still creating with the traditional methods and materials. That's Kyle, DJ, Harlan, Lisa, myself, our dad, our niece Dominique, and our two sisters Joyce and Janice. Next slide. A sample of what Coach is known for. It's a storyteller figure. So this is how we pass down all our traditions, like through storytelling, and our language it's not written, so it's always passed down verbally. But they portrayed like grandmothers or grandfathers carrying their kids, or even animals too. So that's really traditional style for Coach de Pueblo. Next. Sample of our mom's piece, and our dad is a drum maker, would make little drums for the drummers. Figure to carry. I made this piece when I was 6 years old. And it's so funny and predictive of the future of like, you don't know if it's a male or female. Like it has a bow tie, but it also has breasts. And it's just kind of funny, right? And then our grandmother's piece. And then the last two on that side is like, I started experimenting with painting on the pots, doing like black line tattoo, and really loving the design work on it. Next one. Oh, the red is also a clay. And it's from everything's, yeah, it's a clay. The only vegetal part is the black. So this is like probably was influenced by Bigfoot or something, and I made these pieces when I was 6 years old. Next. This is the video of like a year's work put into 5 minutes. Go for it.